Happiness isn't a gift life hands to the lucky. It's a challenge, a decision, a discipline. It's something you wake up and fight for, especially when everything around you tells you not to. The world will test your joy. It will throw chaos at your peace. And if you're not careful, it'll convince you that you need perfect circumstances just to smile. But the truth is simpler and stronger. You don't need life to be easy. You need to be powerful enough to rise anyway. That's the heart of this episode. Not passive positivity, not fake smiles or cheesy affirmations, but real, grounded strength, the kind that says, I will choose joy even when it hurts. I will show up with light, even in the dark. Because happiness doesn't come from waiting. It comes from pushing, from showing up for yourself, from practicing peace like it's your purpose. And today, we're going to break down exactly how to do that. Not with vague ideas, but with real action, real habits, and a mindset that says, I own this day, and I will make it matter. Ready to push yourself to be happy, no matter what. Then, let's begin. Happiness is a daily decision. Most people wait for happiness like it's weather, like it'll suddenly show up when everything feels perfect. When the job is less stressful, the bills are paid, the body looks better, the people around them behave exactly how they want. But if that's your strategy, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because real life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes brutally unfair. The truth is, joy doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's not a mood that visits. It's a choice you make every single day. Some mornings you'll wake up and it will be easy. The sun's out, things are going your way, and you feel light. But other days, you'll feel heavy for no reason. Tired, office. Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe you're just emotionally drained. And it's in those moments that your decision matters the most. Will you give in to the weight? Or will you rise, not because you feel like it, but because you've trained yourself to? That's the difference between people who drift and people who lead their own lives. One group reacts, the other group responds intentionally. The Stoics taught us this clearly. Your power is not in what happens to you. It's in how you choose to meet it. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations on a peaceful beach. He wrote it while governing an empire under pressure and chaos. Yet he reminded himself and us that the mind is its own place. It can make heaven out of hell, or the opposite. So ask yourself, what are you choosing every morning? Are you choosing bitterness or peace? Are you choosing worry or direction? You won't always be able to control the first thought that pops into your head, but you can control the second one. You can pause, redirect, shift your focus. Say to yourself, today I will look for the good. I will fight for perspective. I will give this day my best, not because life is perfect, but because I choose to live it well. This doesn't mean ignoring pain. It means rising above it. It means seeing reality clearly and still finding a reason to smile. Not fake happiness, not forced joy, but the kind of steady, grounded strength that says, no matter what happens, I own my response. That's what makes you powerful. That's what turns ordinary people into warriors of the mind. Because when you make happiness a decision, not a reward, you stop waiting for joy and start becoming it. Start the day with intention. Your mind, first thing in the morning, is like a sponge. It's wide open, absorbing everything. The tone you set in those first 5 minutes doesn't just influence your mood, it defines the direction of your entire day. And yet, most people wake up and hand that moment away without a second thought. They grab their phone, scroll through notifications, open the floodgates to everyone else's urgency, drama, and noise. And just like that, they've lost control before the day even begins. But here's the truth. The world doesn't get to decide how you feel. You do. And if you don't claim those first few minutes with clarity and strength, the world will claim them for you with fear, comparison, and distraction. That's why you have to start your day with intention, not out of obligation, but out of self-respect. Because how you begin shapes how you show up, not just for others, but for yourself. This doesn't mean you need a perfect morning routine. You don't need to meditate for an hour or write a novel in your journal. All you need is 5 minutes. 5 quiet, honest minutes where you remind yourself, I'm in charge of this mind. I'm responsible for my energy. And today, I choose clarity over chaos. Maybe you take a few deep breaths. Maybe you repeat a phrase like, I will move with purpose. Maybe you simply sit in silence before the world gets loud. Whatever it looks like, own it. Because when you start your day with intention, you move differently. You don't rush out of bed in a panic. You don't stumble into your tasks like a robot. You carry a calm power that says, I'm not reacting to life. I'm leading it. That's what Stoicism teaches us, to create inner order before facing outer noise, to step into the day like a warrior, grounded, centered, clear. So tomorrow morning, before you check a single message, before you let the world in, pause. Ask yourself, what kind of energy do I want to bring today? And more importantly, what kind of energy will I protect myself from? That small moment of reflection isn't a luxury. It's a weapon, a compass, a quiet shield that guards your peace before the day tries to steal it. You owe yourself that, not because it's easy, but because you're worth showing up for. And when you begin each day with that kind of presence, you don't just survive the day, you shape it. Push yourself, especially when it's hard. There's a moment, quiet, invisible, but powerful, when your mind tells you to stop and you feel every part of you wanting to obey. You're tired, you're overwhelmed, you feel like maybe today just isn't the day. And right there, in that exact moment, you face a choice. It's not dramatic. It doesn't look like a scene from a movie, but it's real, and it matters. Because this is where your future is built. Not in the days when everything feels aligned, not when you're full of energy and optimism, but in the ordinary, silent, difficult moments where you feel like giving less, and you choose to give more. We're conditioned to believe that our best work, our happiest days, our breakthroughs will arrive when we feel inspired, when everything inside us says, let's go. But that's not how it works. Inspiration is a myth if it's not backed by discipline, and waiting to feel like it, that's the trap. The people you admire, the ones who seem to rise no matter what, they're not different. They just understand something most people ignore. Motivation is a result, not a requirement. It comes after action, not before. And if you keep waiting to feel ready, life will pass you by. Pushing yourself, especially when it's hard, is the beginning of transformation, and not just the kind of surface-level change that looks good on paper, but the kind that rewires who you are. Every time you do the thing you didn't feel like doing, every time you get up, take the step, show up fully, you send a message to your brain. I am not controlled by emotion. I am not defined by how I feel. I move because I've decided to grow. The Stoics understood this intimately. Epictetus, born into slavery and later crippled, taught that difficulty is not a reason to retreat, but a fire that tempers the soul. Difficulties are things that show what men are, he said. That's why hardship matters, not because it's pleasant, but because it exposes you. It shows you to yourself. When it's hard, you see who you really are and who you have the potential to become. Are you someone who folds when things feel heavy, or someone who sharpens under weight? Think about your own life. The times you're most proud of, the times you still carry in your memory, they probably didn't happen during ease. They came from effort, from struggle, from moments when you kept going anyway. Those were the days that built you. That defined your inner standard. That gave you the strength to face the next challenge with more courage. But if you make comfort your God, if you decide that hard equals bad, that difficulty is a reason to step back, then you'll never know what's on the other side of that resistance. You'll stay soft, frustrated, dependent on perfect conditions to do what you know you should, and eventually that becomes a habit, one that eats away at your confidence from the inside out. So what's the solution? Stop asking if it's easy. Start asking if it's worth it. Don't measure your effort based on how much motivation you feel. Measure it based on how much you want the outcome. Want a strong mind? Then train it on hard days. Want emotional peace? Then prove you can act calmly even when chaos is loud. Want confidence? Then earn your own respect by doing the difficult thing consistently, no matter how you feel. This is what separates people who grow from those who stay stuck. The willingness to push, especially when it's hard. Not just when you're excited, not when the stars align, but when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, when your emotions are pulling you in the opposite direction. That's where greatness starts. So the next time you feel that heaviness, that voice that whispers, "Just skip today," lean in, smile at it, and move anyway, not because it's easy, but because that's how strength is born. Act first, feel later. There's a lie we've been fed since we were young, that you need to feel good before you can do good, that you need to be in the right mood, have the right energy, feel aligned before you act. But the truth, the hard, freeing, powerful truth, is that action doesn't come from emotion. Emotion comes from action. You don't wait to feel confident to move forward. You move forward, and that's what builds confidence. You don't wait to feel motivated to start. You start, and the motivation shows up later, always later. Your brain is not your enemy, but it is a creature of habit. If you've trained it to wait until it feels like it, you've trained it to postpone your power. Think about how many times you've told yourself, "I'll do it when I'm ready. I'll start when I have more energy. I'll speak up when I feel brave." And yet, hours pass, days pass, even years, because feelings are fleeting, but action is momentum. And when you move, your mind follows. It rewires, it wakes up, it remembers what you're capable of. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." What he meant was this: the longer you sit with your hesitation, the heavier it becomes. The more you overthink, the more reasons you'll find not to move. But once you take the first step, even if it's small, even if it's messy, your brain shifts. Your energy rises. You don't need a complete plan. You need a starting point. You don't need to feel ready. You need to act as if you are. This mindset isn't about pretending. It's about training. Athletes don't run only when they feel amazing. Writers don't write only when inspiration strikes. Leaders don't speak up only when they're 100% confident. They've trained themselves to show up regardless of how they feel, and you can do the same. It's not talent, it's not personality, It's practice, the practice of action, deliberate, repeated, purposeful. So the next time you feel stuck, remember, that's not a signal to stop. It's a signal to begin. Move your body, write the sentence, make the call, do one thing, just one, and let that motion pull you forward. Don't sit there waiting for the mood to change. Create the change with motion. Action doesn't just solve problems, it transforms your identity. It reminds you, I am not helpless. I am not at the mercy of this emotion. I lead. My feelings follow. This is what emotional mastery looks like. Not suppressing how you feel, but not being ruled by it either. You can acknowledge the resistance without obeying it. You can say, yes, I'm tired. Yes, I feel anxious, and I'm still going to move. That is power. That is maturity. That is the mindset that builds a life of real joy and freedom, not one based on mood swings, but one grounded in inner discipline. So don't wait. Don't bargain with your brain. Don't negotiate your greatness with feelings that will pass in 10 minutes. Train yourself to act first, then watch how everything else shifts into place. Your focus builds your feelings. What you focus on expands. That's not just philosophy, that's neuroscience. Your brain has something called the reticular activating system, and its job is simple. Filter the world to match what you're paying attention to. If you focus on problems, your brain will show you more problems. If you focus on what's lacking, it will magnify every flaw, every failure, every fear. But shift your focus toward growth, toward opportunity, toward what's working. And suddenly the world changes shape. Not because the world changed, but because you did. It's so easy to fall into the trap of complaint, to focus on what's unfair, to dwell on who hurt you, what went wrong, how far you still have to go. But what does that do, really? It doesn't solve anything, it doesn't energize you, it drains you, it convinces you that you're stuck, that there's no way out. And once that story is planted in your mind, it grows like a weed, choking out clarity, optimism and hope. Not because life is truly hopeless, but because that's all your focus allows you to see. The Stoics warned us of this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Your internal state reflects what you dwell on. If you keep replaying old wounds, feeding your frustrations, and expecting the worst, then yes, your emotions will match that energy. But if you practice shifting your gaze, even slightly, you begin to reclaim power. You begin to ask different questions, not why is everything against me, but what can I still control? Not why is this happening to me, but what strength is this building in me? That shift matters more than you think, because feelings follow focus. If you spend your day obsessing over what's wrong, then no amount of distraction, entertainment, or even success will bring peace. You'll still feel unsettled, still feel stuck. But focus on possibilities. Focus on what's within your reach, what you're grateful for, what you're building, and watch how your energy shifts. You don't need a perfect life to feel good. You need a better lens. This is where happiness becomes a skill, not just a feeling. It's the ability to redirect your mind when it spirals, to catch yourself when you start feeding the wrong fire, to say, yes, there's difficulty, but I choose not to make that my identity. That choice, made again and again, creates resilience. It builds emotional flexibility. It gives you the space to rise, even when your situation hasn't improved yet. So the question becomes, what are you magnifying right now? What do you keep feeding with your attention? Is it helping you grow or keeping you afraid? Is it pulling you closer to the life you want or anchoring you in the past you're trying to escape. You always have the power to shift your focus. Not once, not perfectly, but consistently. And every time you do, you train your mind to serve you, not sabotage you. Remember, your attention is the currency of your life. Spend it on what strengthens you, not what weakens you, because where focus goes, emotion follows. And if you want to feel stronger, calmer, more empowered, it begins with what you choose to see. Feed your mind like you feed your body. If someone told you they haven't eaten in days, you'd worry for their health. You'd tell them they need fuel, that the body can't function without nourishment. But here's the strange thing. Most people understand that truth physically and completely ignore it mentally. They feed their bodies 3 times a day, but starve their minds for months. Worse, they don't just starve them, they pollute them with endless scrolling, with drama, with shallow content that doesn't uplift, doesn't challenge, doesn't inspire. And then they wonder why they feel stuck, drained, or numb. What you consume mentally matters just as much, if not more, than what you eat. Because your thoughts shape your perception. And your perception, that's your entire experience of life. It doesn't matter what's happening out there, if what's happening in here is chaotic, anxious, or disconnected. That's why protecting your mental diet isn't a luxury. It's survival. It's strength. It's what separates the reactive from the intentional. You don't need to read 10 books a month to feed your mind, but you do need to ask, what am I putting into my head today? Is it noise or wisdom? Is it complaints or solutions? Is it gossip or growth? You become what you consume, slowly, invisibly, inevitably. The same way junk food weakens the body over time, mental junk weakens your clarity, your discipline, your peace. That's not an exaggeration. That's a fact backed by how the brain wires itself. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So if you spend hours feeding your brain low-quality content, guess what kind of thoughts will dominate your mind? This is where Stoic practice becomes practical. The Stoics didn't have Instagram or podcasts, but they were ruthless about what they allowed to enter their minds. They guarded their thoughts like a fortress. They read deeply, reflected often, and chose their influences carefully. Not because they were trying to be pure, but because they understood that the mind, like the body, becomes what it's trained with. And in our time, that training is constant. Every scroll, every video, every conversation, it's either sharpening you or softening you. So build a habit of feeding your mind intentionally. Start the day with something meaningful. A short passage from a book that reminds you who you want to be. A podcast that challenges your thinking. A conversation that deepens your understanding. And throughout the day, audit your input. Catch yourself when you're slipping into mindless consumption. Not with guilt, but with awareness. Because mental strength is built exactly like physical strength, with repetition, effort, and the right fuel. You wouldn't expect a great body by eating once a week. Don't expect a great mindset by reading one quote a month. If you want clarity, focus, creativity, and joy, you need to feed those states. You need to nourish them, water them, prioritize them. So the next time you reach for your phone, pause and ask, is this feeding me or draining me? The answer will tell you everything. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Your focus, your mood, your growth, your ability to push through hard days. All of it begins with what you allow in. Treat your mind with the same care, the same love, the same discipline you'd give your body if you were training for something great. Because you are. You're training for a life that's worth living. a life that's lived awake, alive, and fully present. And that starts with what you feed yourself, not just on your plate, but in your thoughts. Gratitude isn't a luxury, it's survival. When life feels heavy, when everything seems to be falling apart, the last thing most people want to hear is, "Be grateful." It sounds tone-deaf, it feels dismissive. But that's only because we've misunderstood what gratitude really is. Gratitude isn't pretending everything's okay. It's not blind optimism. It's not a denial of hardship. Gratitude is defiance. It's the inner rebellion that says, "I will not let pain define the totality of this moment." It's not a luxury reserved for good days. It's a survival strategy for the worst ones. The brain is wired to detect threats. That's how it keeps you alive. But in a modern world overflowing with negativity, that same survival mechanism can turn toxic. It becomes a loop, scanning for what's wrong, replaying every mistake, every slight, every fear. And left unchecked, it doesn't just cloud your mood, it alters your entire worldview. Suddenly everything feels like a problem, and the more you focus on what's wrong, the more you miss what's right. Gratitude breaks that cycle, not by ignoring the hard stuff, but by anchoring you in reality. Because no matter how difficult life gets, there is always something, however small, that remains untouched. A breath, a moment of silence, a lesson learned, a person who cares, a sunrise you didn't ask for but received anyway. These aren't cliches, these are lifelines. When your mind is spiraling into stress or sadness, gratitude brings you back to center. It grounds you. It reminds you, yes, this hurts. But this is not everything. The Stoics practiced this daily. They reflected on what could be lost, not to feel depressed, but to remember what matters. Seneca would write about death and misfortune not to scare himself, but to sharpen his appreciation for what he still had. That's the essence of gratitude. It's not just noticing the good. It's realizing the fragility of it and choosing, again and again, not to take it for granted. You don't need a journal to practice gratitude, although that helps. You just need presence, a willingness to pause in the middle of your mental chaos and ask, what is still beautiful right now? It could be the strength you're building by enduring this pain. It could be the fact that, despite everything, you're still trying, still waking up, still breathing, still showing up for life, even when it doesn't show up the way you wanted. That's not weakness, that's resilience. That's how you reclaim emotional balance when everything feels off. Because gratitude doesn't erase pain. It gives you the strength to carry it. It widens your perspective so the hurt doesn't swallow the whole day. It lets you feel fully without drowning. And here's the hidden truth. People who practice gratitude regularly don't do it because their lives are easier. They do it because they've learned how to navigate the hard days better. They've trained themselves to see light even when darkness is louder. And in doing so, they've built an inner stability that no external circumstance can steal. So when life gets loud, when everything in you wants to spiral, pause, look around, look within, and name just one thing you're thankful for, one thing that still works, one thing that still matters. Say it out loud. Let it interrupt the noise. And if you do that enough, your nervous system starts to relax. Your thoughts soften, and you remember, even here, even now, you still have access to peace. Because gratitude isn't just a feel-good practice, it's a form of mental armor. And in a world that's constantly pushing you to focus on what's missing, gratitude is how you fight back. Your habits shape your emotions. Most people think their mood is something that just happens to them, like the weather. Some days it's good, some days it's bad, and they have no idea why. But the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Your emotions don't come out of nowhere. They're shaped daily by the things you do, the routines you follow, the signals you send to your brain moment by moment. Your habits aren't just about productivity. They're the foundation of how you feel. That's why when your habits fall apart, your emotional state often does too. You don't need some complex 10-step ritual to feel better. You need basics, the kind of basics most people overlook. Are you drinking enough water? Are you moving your body every day, even just a little? Are you getting sunlight, stepping outside, breathing deeply? It sounds almost too simple, but that's the point. These small actions are powerful signals to your nervous system. They tell your brain, I'm safe, I'm engaged, I'm alive. And when you ignore them, your body doesn't just get tired, your mind starts to shut down too. Think about it. When you skip meals, overconsume caffeine, sleep inconsistently, or stare at your phone for hours without rest, what happens? You don't just feel physically worse. You start to feel emotionally unstable. You're more reactive, less patient, more negative. You feel disconnected from yourself. And then you blame it on your job, your relationships, your circumstances, when really it's your daily choices that are whispering in the background, shaping your entire internal world. This is where true emotional intelligence begins, not with big breakthroughs, but with consistency. The Stoics understood this. They lived with discipline not because they were obsessed with control, but because they knew the body and mind are deeply connected. A calm, ordered life leads to a calm, ordered mind, and an undisciplined body often leads to chaotic thoughts and unpredictable emotions. So instead of trying to fix your mood when you're down, go back to the basics. Ask yourself, did I move today? Did I fuel myself with something nourishing? Did I take even 5 minutes away from screens to breathe and reflect? These aren't minor details. They're emotional anchors. They are how you stabilize yourself in a storm, not by thinking your way out, but by acting your way back into alignment. Build a few simple habits and repeat them daily, especially when you don't feel like it. That's when they matter the most. A 5-minute stretch in the morning, a short walk after lunch, a glass of water before coffee, 1 minute of silence before bed. These things seem small, but over time they create emotional steadiness. Not perfection, not permanent bliss, but balance, the kind that keeps you grounded when life throws you off. And here's what's beautiful. The more you honor these habits, the less effort they require. They become automatic. And when your habits support your emotional health, you don't need to rely on willpower just to feel okay. You're carried by your own system. That's what real freedom feels like, when you've designed your life to support your strength. So don't wait for your emotions to fix themselves. Shape them with structure, with intention, with daily decisions that build you from the inside out. Because the person who controls their habits eventually controls how they feel. And that kind of power, it's not found in a book or a breakthrough. It's built one ordinary disciplined day at a time. Your peace is your responsibility. There comes a point in life when you realize no one is going to protect your peace for you, not your friends, not your boss, not your partner, not even your family. People will push, pull, demand, drain. Not because they're evil, but because they're human. And if you're not careful, you'll end up handing over your inner calm to anyone who raises their voice, sends a passive-aggressive message, or decides to make their chaos your burden. That's why peace, real, lasting peace can never be outsourced. It's your responsibility, completely. Most people treat peace like a reward, something they'll feel when everything settles down, when the drama ends, when people behave, when life gets easier. But that day doesn't come, because life doesn't settle down. It's constantly moving. New challenges rise, new tensions appear, and if you're always waiting for peace to be given, you'll spend your whole life reacting to everyone else's storms. The Stoics didn't live peaceful lives in the external sense. They lived during wars, under persecution, facing exile, loss, and betrayal. But they practiced peace like a discipline, an internal fortress built through perspective, boundaries, and relentless clarity about what mattered. Epictetus, who had every reason to be bitter, taught that no one can disturb your peace unless you grant them access. And that's the truth modern life still refuses to teach us. You don't get peace by running away from chaos. You get peace by building it within chaos. That means learning to say no, not as an act of aggression, but as an act of self-respect. It means stepping back from arguments that go nowhere, letting go of people who treat your peace like it's disposable, refusing to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. It means drawing lines, not to push people away, but to protect the sacred space where your mind can breathe and your values can live without interference. And yes, it's hard, because you will be judged. You'll be told you're cold, selfish, distant, but you have to ask, who's saying that? And do they benefit from your boundaries disappearing? Real peace often offends those who profit from your people-pleasing. But that's not your burden. Your job is not to make everyone comfortable. Your job is to be rooted, clear, whole, so that when life shakes, you don't crumble with it. This is emotional adulthood, realizing that no one is coming to rescue your peace. No one will build the silence you need to think clearly or the space you need to grow. You have to carve that out yourself, every day. And the more you protect it, the more you realize that your peace isn't passive. It's power. It sharpens your focus, strengthens your decisions. It gives you the space to respond instead of react, to create instead of collapse, to live, not just survive. So ask yourself, where are you leaking energy? Who or what has too much access to your attention, your thoughts, your emotions? What habits pull you into noise instead of grounding you in clarity? You don't need to control everything around you to feel peaceful. You just need to control what you allow in. And the moment you take full responsibility for your peace, without excuses, without blame, is the moment you start living on your own terms, calm, centered, unshakable. Train your brain to think better. Most people assume that their thoughts are just there, automatic, random, fixed. They think whatever pops into their mind is simply the truth. But here's what the Stoics and modern neuroscience agree on: your brain is trainable. Thought is not destiny, it's habit. And like any habit, it can be shaped, sharpened, upgraded. The problem? Most people never question their thinking. They believe every fear, every judgment, every negative story their mind throws at them, without asking, is this even real? Is this helping me? We live in a world that trains us to overthink, not to think clearly, to ruminate instead of reflect, to catastrophize instead of analyze. That's not intelligence, that's mental chaos. If you want to live with peace, with strength, with clarity, you have to rewire the way your brain responds to life. That doesn't mean you'll never feel fear or doubt or anger, but it means those emotions won't drive the car anymore. You will. Let's be clear. Your brain is a survival machine. It's constantly scanning for threats. That's useful in emergencies, but in daily life, it means your default settings are tuned to negativity. You notice what's missing, what's wrong, what could go badly, and if you don't interrupt that loop, you'll live in a state of quiet panic, even when nothing's actually wrong. That's why mental training isn't optional. It's the only way to regain control. The Stoics were masters of this. They practiced premeditatio malorum, visualizing worst-case scenarios, not to create fear, but to prepare their minds, to build resilience through reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly to himself, not just as therapy, but as discipline, to catch unhelpful thoughts and replace them with stronger ones. That's what you need to start doing every single day. Catch the thought, question it, replace it. Here's how it looks in practice. You think, I'm not good enough. Stop. Ask, where's the evidence? Would I speak to someone I love this way? What's a more useful thought I can choose right now? It doesn't have to be fake positivity, just honesty with strength. Something like, I've failed before, but I've also grown. I can handle what's in front of me. That shift may feel small, but done consistently, it rewires your emotional baseline. You don't have to believe every story your mind tells you. You can write a new one. That's what mental fitness really is. It's not just about having big ideas. It's about building strong filters, knowing what to keep and what to throw out, knowing when to step back and say, no, I don't have to think like this just because it's familiar. Because familiar isn't always right. It's just rehearsed. And if you want to change your life, you have to stop rehearsing weakness. You have to stop strengthening self-doubt by repeating it without resistance. The same way your body changes with exercise, your brain changes with conscious repetition. So choose thoughts that build you, that challenge you, that remind you of your values, your vision, your strength. Every thought is a seed. If you plant bitterness, don't be surprised when anger grows. If you plant fear, expect paralysis. But if you plant clarity, discipline, and courage, that becomes your new reality. Slowly, quietly, powerfully. So starting today, stop being passive with your mind. Train it, shape it, teach it to think in ways that serve your peace, not steal it. That's how you become emotionally untouchable, not by avoiding hard feelings, but by becoming stronger than the thoughts that try to break you. Don't chase the feeling, build the habit. There's a dangerous idea floating through the self-help world that you need to feel inspired to act. That motivation is the spark you wait for, and once it arrives, you'll suddenly leap into action with clarity and drive. But ask anyone who's actually built something meaningful, a business, a body, a mindset, a life, and they'll tell you that spark? It's rare. It doesn't show up on schedule, and if you wait for it, you'll waste your life standing still. The people who get things done, the ones who grow through setbacks, who build momentum day by day, they've stopped chasing the feeling. They've started building the habit. They understand that feelings are unpredictable. One morning you're energized, and the next you're in a fog. 1 hour you're optimistic, and the next doubt creeps in. If you base your actions on that unstable ground, you'll never build consistency. But if you create systems, habits that run regardless of emotion, that's where your power begins. It's easy to romanticize progress, to think you'll wake up one day with endless energy, with all the answers, and everything will click. But in reality, progress is built through repetition, through systems, through routines that don't ask how you feel. They just ask if you showed up. A runner doesn't lace up because it feels good every time. They do it because the habit has become part of their identity. A writer doesn't sit down to work because the muse visits daily. They write because they've learned to begin without permission from their emotions. The Stoics knew this long before modern habit science did. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." He wasn't talking about waiting for inspiration. He was talking about aligning your actions with your values, even when it's boring, especially when it's boring, because that's where character is forged, not in moments of passion, but in moments of repetition without applause. Here's the truth. If you keep chasing motivation, you'll always need more of it. It's a drug. It wears off. But if you build systems, if you create structure, design your environment, and reduce friction, you won't need motivation. You'll have momentum. And momentum is more powerful. It doesn't ask for hype. It asks for discipline. It doesn't shout. It moves quietly, steadily, every day. Until one day you look back and realize you've become the person you once only imagined. Start small. One habit, one system. Wake up and stretch for 5 minutes before you touch your phone. Write one sentence a day, even if it's terrible. Review your goals for 2 minutes before bed. These aren't life-changing actions on their own, but done consistently, they become life-changing because they prove to your brain, I don't need to feel ready. I move anyway. And that identity, that's where real power comes from. So stop asking, do I feel like it? Start asking, what would the disciplined version of me do right now? Then do that, not perfectly, not dramatically, just consistently. And over time, that discipline becomes part of you. It becomes automatic. It becomes stronger than the mood swings, the setbacks, the doubts. Because you don't need to feel like it to move. You just need to move and let everything else catch up. Refuse to be a victim. It's one of the hardest truths to face, that life doesn't owe you fairness, that some people will hurt you without reason, that opportunities will slip through your fingers no matter how hard you worked, that some pain will come that you didn't deserve and didn't see coming. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still standing, and in that fact alone, you hold more power than you realize. Because no matter what happened, no matter who left, what failed, what broke, you still have one thing the world cannot touch: your response. That's what Stoicism teaches us again and again, that while the world may take much from you, it cannot take your ability to choose how you meet it. But victimhood, it steals that choice. Not because it's wrong to feel pain, but because it teaches you to stay there. It turns a temporary wound into an identity. It convinces you that because you were hurt, you are now helpless. That's the trap. That's the story you have to reject. Completely. Yes, bad things happened. Yes, it was unfair. Yes, it's okay to feel angry, confused, and exhausted. But after the storm settles, you have a decision to make. Do I stay in the narrative of pain, or do I write a new one? Because every time you replay the betrayal, the injustice, the failure, without stepping into ownership, you give your power away. You let your past narrate your future. You let pain become your compass. And that is how people remain stuck for years. Not because they didn't suffer, but because they made their suffering their story. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." That isn't denial. It's discipline. It's the refusal to give your energy to blame when you could give it to rebuilding. You can acknowledge what happened and take responsibility for what happens next. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of strength. And here's the shift. Responsibility doesn't mean self-blame. It means realizing that your healing is your job. Your progress is your job. Your peace is your job. No one is coming to save you. And that's not something to mourn, that's something to embrace. Because once you stop waiting for the apology that may never come, the justice that may never arrive, the perfect circumstances that may never form, you're free to act, to build, to become. Victimhood drains you. It convinces you that life is happening to you instead of through you. But you're not powerless. You're not the same person who was hurt, because now you're aware, you're awake. And that awareness is a seed. It's the beginning of wisdom, of strength, of boundaries. It's the fire that says, I may have been broken, but I am not finished. So stand up, reclaim the narrative. Refuse to let your worst day define your identity. You are more than what hurt you. You are the architect of what comes next. Stop waiting for closure. Give it to yourself. Stop waiting for life to hand you healing. Start building it with what you have. Brick by brick, thought by thought, day by day. Because the moment you refuse to be a victim is the moment you become something far more powerful. A creator, a fighter, a force, not untouched by pain, but transformed by it. The hard days count the most. It's easy to love life when everything flows, when the sun's out, your plans work, and people treat you well. But those days aren't the ones that build you. They're nice, they're necessary, but they're not where your strength is forged. The real transformation, that happens in the silence, in the heaviness, in the days when you don't want to get up, when the world feels indifferent, and when the only thing pulling you forward is something deeper than motivation. It's your will. That's why the hard days matter more than we give them credit for. They're not detours from the path. They are the path. They're the training ground where patience is tested, character is carved, and inner strength is called forward. They show you who you are, not the version you show others, but the raw, honest, unfiltered version that appears when life strips the comfort away. And that version, that's the one that holds power. The Stoics didn't just prepare for adversity, they welcomed it, not because they were masochists, but because they understood a hard truth. The obstacles are the curriculum. Epictetus said, difficulties show a person's character. So when trouble comes, think of it as training. That mindset flips everything. It means that instead of seeing your struggle as punishment, you start seeing it as preparation. Think of the days you were most tempted to give up, the ones where you felt invisible, misunderstood, defeated, the ones where your energy was gone and your heart was heavy. And yet, you kept going. Maybe you didn't move fast. Maybe you didn't feel strong, but you showed up. And that matters more than you realize, because every time you keep going, especially when you don't feel like it, you send a message to yourself. I'm not here to coast. I'm here to grow. We often forget that strength isn't loud. It's not the speech you give or the moment you post. It's quiet, private, internal. It's the moment you take a deep breath and do what needs to be done, even though no one sees it. It's the calm choice in the middle of the storm. It's deciding to stay kind when life has made you bitter. It's getting back up, not once, but every time. And here's the truth. If you only value your good days, you'll always hate half your life. You'll resist the seasons that are meant to shape you. But when you learn to appreciate the difficult days, not for how they feel, but for what they give you, you unlock something powerful. You stop fighting the process. You stop waiting for things to be easy. You start understanding that pain is not the opposite of growth. It is growth in disguise. So the next time you wake up with that heaviness, that fog in your mind, that ache in your spirit, remember, This is the day that counts. This is the day that matters, not because it's fun, but because how you meet this day will echo in every day that follows. Your future self is watching how you handle this moment, and when you push through, even gently, even slowly, you give that future self more strength to stand on. Honor your hard days. Let them do their work. Let them shape you, challenge you, deepen you. Because one day, when you look back, you'll realize it wasn't the easy days that made you. It was the ones where you had every reason to give up. And did and didn't. Joy doesn't come from the outside. There's a subtle lie that creeps into our minds, not all at once, but through repetition. It whispers, you'll be happy when you have more money, when your body looks different, when your follower count goes up, when they finally notice you, when you buy that new thing, live in that new place, become that new person. And the world reinforces it constantly. Advertisements, social media, culture. It all tells you joy is somewhere out there. But the truth? The truth is quieter, simpler, uncomfortable even. Joy doesn't come from outside. It grows from within. And if you can't access it now, in this moment, with what you already have, you won't find it by adding more. External things can bring pleasure, sure. They can bring comfort, even excitement. But that's not the same as joy. Pleasure is fleeting. It fades as quickly as it arrives. But joy, real, grounded, sustainable joy, is a state of alignment. It's what happens when who you are matches how you live. It's not about what you have. It's about how you show up. You can have everything the world celebrates and still feel empty. Because if your internal world is out of sync, no amount of success or applause will silence that ache. This is why you see people with fame, wealth, and admiration still crumble in private. They reached the summit only to find the same emptiness waiting for them, just at a higher altitude. The Stoics warned against this thousands of years ago. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Because when you chase joy through acquisition, you're feeding an appetite that never ends. So what's the answer? It starts by asking better questions, not, how can I get more? But, am I proud of how I live? Not, do people approve of me? But do I approve of myself? Not, what can I achieve next? But, am I living in alignment with what I value most? These questions lead you inward, and it's there, in that quiet space, that real joy begins. This doesn't mean you have to reject all desires or ambitions. It means you stop assigning them the job of fulfilling you. Buy the thing, set the goal, build the life, but don't confuse those actions for peace. Don't expect the next achievement to do the internal work you've been avoiding, because peace and purpose aren't delivered. They're developed. Start with simple alignment. Are your actions consistent with your values? Are your words reflective of your truth? Do you treat people and yourself with integrity, even when no one's watching? If the answer is yes, even a little, then you're already tapping into something deeper than momentary happiness. You're building a foundation of joy that doesn't shake every time life throws a storm. And here's what's remarkable. Once that inner alignment is there, external things actually become more enjoyable because they're not responsible for your happiness anymore. You can appreciate them without being owned by them. You can let them come and go without letting them define you. That's what freedom feels like.